Well, looks like I picked the wrong week to stop sniffing glue.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah. The fact that I absolutely butchered that, it's kind of
Just as again.
Yeah. Fuck it. No, it's in fitting with the week that it's been, really, hasn't it? Like, honestly, I've not had a lot of fun trying to come up with this agenda over the last 48 hours. We've actually had a lot more fun watching mad Aussies trying to cook big pots of food on YouTube. But yes.
That's what I reckon, if you're not onto him already. By the way, we're just going to give him a shout out because he's boss. Yes. Not only does he give you great tips for cooking, but he's funny as fuck. And look, you might just want to watch something that's not about football right now, and that's perfectly understandable, isn't it?
It is.
So yeah, look up, and that's what I reckon. If you don't already know about him, he's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and I say that because I wanted to get some positivity into the show because there isn't going to be a lot everywhere else. Yeah, so here we are. This is the Late Challenge podcast. I'm Mo Stewart. That's Gareth Roberts. Here we are aboard the most miserable unbeaten run for quite some time. It's been 40 days since Liverpool last lost a game of football, but there have been plenty of results in that time that felt like a defeat. Since the last show, we've had 2 games, 2 draws, 2 goals, 2 slow, 2 uninspiring, 2 boring. That's really what we've all been saying when we're watching this Liverpool team. Now, I wrote a fair portion of this agenda before the Fulham game in the desperate hope that after watching the Fulham game, I'll be able to delete it all. But no, a lot of the same frustrating talking points remained from the Leeds game. The biggest one being the boring shout, which we will get into in detail in this show. It really feels bad to talk about boringness and to talk about not really wanting or enjoying football, because enjoying football is really what we're all about on this show and in general. Like, you know, we always want to remind people what we're in it for, you know? The joy of watching your team, your mates and your family, the emotional roller coaster of goals, wins, trophies. Where the hell has all that gone?
To me, it just underlines something that I've always said about we're actually really, really, really fortunate, lucky, whatever word you want to use, to support Liverpool, because we've had so many good times and we finally won the league twice. We are currently the champions. We've seen us lift European Cups, UEFA Cups, World Club Cups, whatever you want, FA Cup, League Cup, the lot.
Yeah,
basically.
everything you could.
They've done the lot in my lifetime. And at times like these where it's a little bit grim, a little not what we want, not how we expected it to go, and Liverpool always has great expectations around it because of what we've done in the past. And it always comes to my mind then, imagine supporting, I don't know, any other club without naming it. But you know what I mean? Like all these clubs where this is what it's like normally for them. And you know, there are loads of them. You know what I mean? There's 92 in the pyramid.
There's one not a million miles away from here.
Indeed. So, you know, I just like, I found myself, you know, before the Leeds game, having a really nice time with my mates in the pub. We're having a boss laugh, we're having a catch up and all that. And it almost came to mind of, do you have to go together?
Let's just do this.
Because, you know, worryingly and sadly, I sort of knew what it was going to be like because we know what it's been like. You know, this run of not getting beat is great because, well, not great. It's greater than losing all the time. It's greater than losing 9 and 12. But it's uninspiring. It's dull. It's not, you know, and it never feels, there never feels any surety around it. I mean, you know, I'm just looking back at the run we're on. I think the one I probably enjoyed out of them is Inter.
Yeah.
Because that was brilliant, wasn't it? You know what I mean? You went there, you know, they are a European heavyweight. They were in the final of the Champions League last season. And you're like, you know, I think they were unbeaten at home in 2 years and all that kind of stuff. And you go there, you put in a European performance and win, and you're like, get it. Yeah. That's great. But then most of the rest of it has been pretty turgid, hasn't it? And I get it if the manager, the players, everyone has sort of gone, well, you know, let's make it almost non-eventful in a way to stop the bleeding. But we're well into the stopping the bleeding bit now, aren't we? And
that's the thing.
And you know, look, you look at the most recent game. There's elements of being patched up. There's elements of players out of position and all that. But it's not that sort of worrying me, to be honest. It was things like, I genuinely thought, I'm not just saying this because of what then happened, but I was watching it thinking, I've watched Conor Bradley for Northern Ireland, and he's the main fella.
Yeah.
And he runs at defenders, and he's up and down, he's bombing up and down. I've seen Kirkes do that for Bournemouth. Where's that for us? And then, lo and behold, what actually leads to a goal? Him doing that.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm then left wondering, is that the manager, or is that them, or is that both? Because I can remember little bits. I was thinking about this today about, you called it born Liverpool. Do you remember even when we were winning, basically, and obviously we won the league last season, Arne Slot's dad said we were boring and said the football was boring at times. And it was like, so this isn't new, but it feels worse. And it's like, I just want to see us like have a go at teams. This sort of like sitting off, having the ball but not doing anything with it. Sterile domination, I think, as Brendan once called it. It's fucking
Brendan's
horrible
getting
to
name
watch.
checked quite a lot at the moment, and I feel like the boring stuff. So there's been Liverpool managers in the past who've been accused of being boring. Houllier at times, Rafa Benitez at times, and there's been Liverpool managers in the past who've been accused of being just bad. Hodgson being the one, but when you're boring and bad together, that's normally the time when you see regime changes, and that was what was happening towards the end of the Brendan Rodgers era. I think something like 7 of his last 17 games Liverpool won, and Arne Slot's currently won 5 of his last 15 league games. So it's like, you talk about stopping the bleeding. That only works for a little while. I think with every performance like this, the kind of margin for, at least we're not losing anymore, kind of gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And now we're at a point where
you want to see something that like sort of points to the future a little bit.
Exactly.
And look, like I say, obviously there are injuries and there are factors and there are new players and there's, a huge amount of change and all of that kind of stuff are all true and they're all right. And, question marks, as we've said on here before, should be aimed towards, the people who go and recruit the players as well as the current coach, etc. and so on. But nevertheless, it's him who sends them out. And like the other thing I was going to say about, as well as the dad thing, was I can't remember what game it is. You might, because your memory's better than mine. But I can remember there was a game where he publicly had a pop at Szoboszlai, I think it was, for basically trying a Cruyff turn.
It was Bournemouth.
And losing the ball. And he come out in his press conference and basically said, well, if he hadn't tried to do that, then it wouldn't have led to a goal type of thing. And I remember thinking then, well, you've got to take some risks in the opponent's half, surely.
Yeah.
Because what we're seeing at the moment is we're too predictable, we're too slow. It almost feels like I'm not going to read it out because it's bad. Yeah, but I put something in my mate's WhatsApp group because you're a different person there.
Oh yeah.
And I was like sort of like I was having a bit of a pop, and I was saying what was the team talk like? And like I sort of wrote one mess and I said, like, lads, let's just wait until they're completely set every time and then move the ball from side to side really slow. And then when we get closer and closer to the box, just keep passing it back. No one try and take anyone on. No one do anything different. And then let's all wonder afterwards why we didn't score. And that's kind of what we're seeing. And look, it's fine margins, isn't it? We'd be sitting here saying something slightly different, not completely different, I don't think, if the lad who hadn't scored for 3 years, didn't decide to score an absolute fucking worldie and put it in the only place in the goal that Alisson wasn't going to get to. But that is what happened, though. And the other thing, I think we've said it before, I just find some of the managers' public comments at the moment really grand, and he's going on about luck again. And it's like, there is an element of luck, there is an element of randomness in football, but not across half a season, which is what we've had now.
The thing with luck is as well, and this is something he said himself, the point is that you're meant to make yourself good enough so random acts of luck doesn't affect the result. He said it when he talks about refereeing decisions. He said it when he talks about set pieces. The point is to make sure that you're good enough so those things, those variables don't get in the way of 3 points. But we're nowhere near that at the moment. You mentioned the Szoboszlai thing. I think the thing that irked me about that particular is that he was upset that he tried that when Liverpool I believe Liverpool were 2-1 up at that point, and it led to the equaliser to go 2-2. Now, Liverpool being 2-1 up is not necessarily game over. When you're 2-1 up, you still want to go and score to make it 3-1. You still want to score to make it 4-1. You still want to score to shut the game down. That is a viable option. That is exactly what a team as good as Liverpool and as big as Liverpool should be doing. So the idea that he took umbrage with that, but for me, I don't even think it's that. I think all of this comes down to balance. Balance between attack and defence. That's something that we've been struggling with across the whole of this season. And until that is solved, I think we're always going to be here. But you mentioned the Fulham game. Let's do a little bit more of a deep dive into it. Sorry, everybody. So, yeah, Fulham scored with their first shot of the game and with their last shot of the game. And to be fair, both of them were good goals, aesthetically pleasing if you're not Liverpool. But both of them owed a little bit to defensive mistakes. Cara did a really good analysis of what Konate should have done, what in fact both centre-halves should have done before the Harry Wilson goal in terms of closing down the space that you then ran into. And then Slot mentioned the fact that from the second goal, they were all set up expecting another long throw. They went short, and it's like, okay, I understand why they were set up for a long throw because there've been lots of long throws. Liverpool got in their heads about set pieces. They wanted to make sure they were ready. But you've got to be switched on. You've got to be able to react to what happens in the moment. And once it was clear that they weren't going to do a long throw, there was still plenty of time for someone to get out to him and at least put sort of red shirt in his face and said, go on then, if you're going to do that, pearl it around me as well. But they didn't do that. Liverpool, obviously, we should point out the fact that after 180 minutes against Wolves, second half, the whole game against Leeds, and the first game against Fulham, 180 minutes against those three opponents without a goal, Liverpool did finally score a couple of goals. The last one, the one that we thought was going to be the winner, came from the 23rd cross of the game, but the first one actually found a teammate.
Even then, it should have been defended.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that was another thing that was really, really doing my head in. But we talked about luck and talked about, Liverpool being unlucky to concede a goal like that at a time like that when they were this close to a win. Liverpool had more shots, more big chances, higher expected goals, and they were in the lead with a minute to go. But do we think they deserve to win? I'm not sure.
They at the bar.
They at the bar. I mean, you could say McAllister at the bar as well, but even within that...
And their game plan as well was clearly we're happy for you to have it as well. Do you know what I mean? We're happy to watch you play in front of us.
The first half was so indicative of that because it was... Liverpool had the ball. Liverpool moving it left to right. Liverpool were doing this, doing that. Oh, I'm about to die.
Life support again, lad.
And then as soon as Fulham got the ball... It was bang, 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 bang. And it was almost like they knew exactly what they wanted to do the moment Liverpool stopped doing all of this stuff. And you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of what Liverpool did to Spurs, where another team who had been accused by their fan base of being boring, of uninspiring, not having a clue of how they're going to score a goal. We went away to Spurs, first half an hour, and just said, come on then, let's see what you can do. You know you can't do anything. We're just going to sit here and wait for you to mess it up, and then we're going to take the ball. And then teams have started doing that to us, and it's been working. But I want to talk about deserving. I know it's another one of those things that's very contentious with a lot of people, but there's a new stats model by a fellow called Gregory Janks. I wanted to shout him out, someone I follow on Blue Sky. And what it essentially does is it's a shot analysis simulator. So when people say, oh, this team had a higher expected goals, they had more shots, therefore they deserve to win. What this model does is it looks at all the data for all of those shots and then works out the probability of the outcome. So based on all of the quality of shots you've had, what's the probability of winning, losing, and drawing? And now a Liverpool win was by far the most likely of those three outcomes, 54%, but it's still only 54%. So if you look at it from a point of view of Liverpool win, Liverpool don't win, it's a coin toss. You want to be in a situation where it's 60, 70, maybe even 80% win probability. That's what big teams do. That's what Man City do. That's what Arsenal do. So And you pointed out the injuries. We have to point out the fact that Ekitike wasn't playing.
Top scorer.
Yeah, exactly. Top scorer wasn't playing. Mo Salah wasn't playing. And whatever you say about his form this season, last year he was a top scorer. He's been the main man for this team for such a long time. Isak, the guy we brought in to score the goals, he's missing, even if he hasn't been. So it was always going to be a game where they struggled from an attacking point of view. But even within that, I mean, you have to mention as well, Florian Wirtz, who did score a goal. Slot mentioned the fact that in the last week he's missed a couple of days training. He's been feeling his hamstring. So he's probably not really been himself either the last 2 games. So you have to factor that in as well. But even amongst all of that, I'd have expected it to be a little bit better than that, maybe.
Yeah, I think there are loads of factors that, you'd be right to acknowledge if you're trying to analyse what's going on. And, we have done. As usual, we have someone in the comments who just wants to say, like, we're saying we know more than the manager or whatever. And we're really not, mate. We're just watching the football, coming away from it and going, that wasn't that great. Just a little shout out as well, a couple of people. Malcolm Fisher, thrown in a fiver there and just says, this season is like watching group grief. There's been anger and depression and now it's flatness. I feel for them, but it will pass. And then also shout out to Paul Roach. He's throwing a tenner in, says, have a pint, lad. Says, nice to meet you, Gareth, in the chippy after the Leeds game. We will get to meet in Paul's bar soon. Up the Reds, and everyone should have a hat like Mo's, he says. Just a shout out for his bar as well, St John's Road in Waterloo. Nice. Paul's bar, L22. It's boss, and the big Reds. Paul goes, his lad goes as well. I've been in there and had a pint, and it's very nice indeed. Nice. So we'll give that a little shout out there, mate. And yeah, just look. Do we really have to say to you in the comments, we're all Reds here? Everyone wants the best thing for the club. And like, there's this really weird thing, like I actually put in our own chat on the subscriber. If you're over on Patreon, there's like a bit of a chat function. You can throw stuff in. And I was thinking about the show today, and I was thinking about, should I write anything, and all the usual thoughts that run through my head. And I thought, there's no win at the moment. There's literally no win. And then also there's no win in terms of, either see someone will say you're too positive, someone will say you're too negative, someone will say you're in FSG's pocket, someone will say you agree with Carragher because if you disagree you wouldn't get on the overlap. It's a new one.
Yeah, there's always an ulterior motive in there. Yeah, I get the access shout all the time. Like, oh yeah,
access to Dixons.
But you're right. It's like there's always a reason beyond your own opinion why someone believes you say something, and you're right. There's nothing.
Any sign of the parcel, lads?
Oh
no, still no sign, Ian. Sorry, mate.
But yeah, you can never please everyone at a time like this because there's so much that's going wrong and there's so much confusion amongst people. But like you say, all we can do is call it as we see it.
It's Ian. I always do this, don't I? Where it's Ian, is that Ian or Owen? I do this every single time. Owen, sorry mate, done it again, haven't I? and he sent stuff to us before. A combination of memory and just growing up in Huyton and not having a wide number of people who aren't just from Huyton as well. Anyway, but yeah, no sign of the parcel still, mate. I don't know what's happened there, but sorry mate. But thanks for sending it, and hopefully it will turn up. We've had stuff turn up like ages later before as well, haven't we? So
we're not going anywhere. It'll reach us eventually. But yeah, so just full disclosure, by the way. Aside from all of this Liverpool stuff, I've spent 6 hours today on trying to get through to Ryanair customer service. So I've had a horrible day. So I have this much bandwidth for people being idiots in the comments. So if that's you, sort it out.
Someone's mentioned a good point there. And I was looking at this earlier and I thought, okay, should we mention this? Just because I feel like it's not fair and it's not realistic. Like, if you look at this season, okay, we've lost 9 games, so that's obviously crap.
Yeah.
It's 31% of the games we played. So you can't, no one's trying to, polish that particular turd.
No.
And obviously we kicked it off with, losing the Community Shield as well, if you're bothered about that kind of thing. But people are doing this calendar year thing now. And I feel it's a little bit disingenuous, I've got to be honest. Because well, hey, we won the fucking league. So, that should sort of supersede anything else that went on. But also, like, if we just run through them dead quick. Okay, Nottingham Forest. Yeah, we lost that game at home after an international break, and then we went on a long undefeated run, and the next defeat wasn't until January, round about now, in fact. We lost to Tottenham in the League Cup away. However, that was a two-legged affair.
Yes, indeed.
So, yes, we lost on the night, but we didn't actually lose the tie. Then, the next defeat after that was the end of January to PSV away. A dead rubber, as I recall, when I think he made shitloads of changes. No one was asked. And it can't surely count in some kind of analysis now.
Well, I mean, I think it's just a completely different team. And I think I would say the same about the Plymouth game. Cause
yeah.
You
Exactly.
can't really,
It's just...
There are different players. And to be honest...
It's just disingenuous.
The wider point, it also says that it's a different team. So, for example... The team that was playing a lot of those games last season, 7 players from that squad have gone.
Well, the team that loses to PSV Eindhoven is Kelleher, Robertson, Kwanzaa, Bradley, Endo, Chiesa, Elliott, Simicast, McConnell, Gakpo and Dans. Okay? So that's that one. And then what was the other one that we were just saying? Plymouth. Well, let's pull that one up for a laugh as well. But, you know, like, people are constantly regurgitating it as like, yeah, and then when you come to all these defeats as well last season, well, and it's like, but put it in the true context rather than just trying to, like, pile on. You know, there's plenty to pile on the manager anyway, without sort of adding blatantness, is what I would say.
So my thing on this is that lots of what we've seen so far this season is a struggle to deal with lots of players going out and lots of players coming in. So to say that it's all 1 year and it's all one team is, again, disingenuous, because the team who play even in the League Cup final in February is a very different team to the team who's been playing games now. For starters, the guy who scored the winner is now on our side rather than their side. So it's a very different team. And also, if you listen to what Arne Slot was saying around the May, April, June time, you get the impression that this big seismic changes they made in the summer was a reaction to his admission that things weren't as good as they should have been in the second half of last season.
But we still went 26 games unbeaten. You know, like so are we not having that now? Yeah, the Plymouth team as well have pulled that up for you. So this is another one that people are counting against the manager now, when, if I recall correctly, quite a number of us, including me, were glad we went out because it was about winning the league. It was like, let's not get... Like, if this gets in the way and stops us winning the league, you know, what the fuck? Let's win the league. So Kelleher, Gomez, Kwanzaa, Endo, Chiesa, Elliott, Simicast, McConnell, Nioni, Diaz and Jota was the starting team for that team for that tie when we lost to Plymouth in the FA Cup. So that's another one. You know what I mean? That's another one where it's like, if you're adding up all these numbers and going, well, in the calendar year, like, why are we counting that one? Because no one was asked that we did that. You know, like, no, there was no huge outcry that happened. It was more, I get it, it makes sense, because the priority is finally go and win this league in a manner that we want to lose it, that we want to win it. And then, you know, following from Plymouth, we lost to PSG, obviously, eventually going out of the Champions League to them. They went on to win it. And then we lost the League Cup final to Newcastle, of course. We lost to Fulham before we were champions. And then we won 3 in a row. West Ham, Leicester, Tottenham. We then lost to Chelsea when we were champions.
Yes.
We drew with Arsenal when we were champions. We lost to Brighton when we were champions. And then we drew with Crystal Palace on the final day. So I just think if you're drawing these big things, like, well, yeah, but when you look right across the year, okay, well, look across ones where it matters. Don't include a dead rubber. Don't include an FA Cup game. And probably, to be honest with you, don't include games when we've won the league, because they've won the league. It's done. And you can argue that you don't like that and you don't like them going away and all of that.
That's
I get
fine.
that.
That's fine.
But I kind of think if you're holding against the manager regarding the current situation, it doesn't really land that for me.
No. I still think, like I say, I said it before, I still think that a lot of what's happening this season, a lot of what they tried to do this summer was a response to that. So the idea that Liverpool have just been poor all year, calendar year, and it's the same old, and nothing's been done to fix it, I don't buy that. What I do say is that what has been done to fix it hasn't worked up to this point. And you can make criticisms over the methods that they use to fix it. And we'll come on to that. In fact, let's come on to that now then. So one of the things that I mentioned in this agenda, and we were talking about, you mentioned it earlier before, is it the players, is it the manager? So there's two kind of theories I've been knocking around on this. And I wanted to kind of put them out there to you, to everyone, and see where we all feel about them. So let's start with the manager. When he arrived in Liverpool, his main point of difference from Jurgen Klopp was it was all about taking less big risks. If you think about it, we had Trent playing in midfield, doing Hollywood passes whenever he could, sometimes playing between the centre halves, basically changing the system around just so we could get him a bit of space so he could go and do what he wanted to do. And what Slot did was he said, that's all well and good, but when you do that, and we lose the ball, we end up in a lot of trouble. So let's kind of be a bit more patient. Let's try to wait for the perfect opportunity to arrive. Let's try to go for a small probability shot to a larger probability shot. And for the most part, we were able to do that. The amount of times we saw Liverpool goals where the ball was put across the 6-yard box and someone was tapping it in at the back post. That's a high percentage shot compared to what we were trying. And sometimes
lad at Fulham.
Yeah, well, exactly, yeah. But I mean, if you think, and I use Trent as the example because it's the most obvious one, but it wasn't just him. There were lots of times where Liverpool would try the big early ball and it wouldn't work and they'd be out of position. And Slot kind of calmed all of that down. You could see the plan of what he wanted to do and all that kind of stuff until it got harder around February, as I mentioned earlier. And at that point, teams started dropping deeper, there was less space, and the team were finding it hard to score. So the tactics that he was using that worked so well at the beginning of last season, since everyone's become a little bit deeper, they've been less useful. So now, after all this time of saying, well, let's use less risk, let's get rid of some of the players who were good at risk, they've now got to try and put it all back in. And it's not really working. It's not as easy to do. Now, does this mean that he's naturally just a cautious manager? So throwing caution to the wind's not as natural to him? If you think about when he's been going gung-ho this season, it's not necessarily been a case of, okay, we're going to change the tactics, we're going to be a little bit more adventurous. It's been, I'm just going to throw all the attackers I've got available on the pitch and they're going to work it out and somehow we're going to score a goal. It doesn't seem as natural to him as it does in terms of making things a bit more solid and secure defensively. So do you think that's a valid criticism of him? Maybe he's just not as good at that risky attacking stuff as he is at the more opposite side?
Maybe. I mean, like, there's a thing, you know, like there's the constant call, which is like almost, yes, like us saying something on an ear is going to make any difference, but like this constant call of like, you know, he needs to go, we need to go. Well, okay, are you getting in? Because like Man United just sacked their manager today, and then they're on about having an interim manager for the next match, and then another interim manager until the end of the season, and then getting the manager that they might actually want in the summer, which suggests to me there's not absolutely loads of fellas out. I mean, like, Stu Wright absolutely chewed me ear off the other week going on about Enrique, and then Enrique's apparently signing a contract for life for PSG.
Yeah. They're not stupid.
Well, yeah. So, you know, we know that sort of, we know how FSG operates, we know how the football team above the manager operates, and I really don't think they're going to pull any kind of plug unless A, we go on another mad run like the 9 and 12 run. You couldn't sustain another one.
No.
So, and therefore totally ruling themselves out of getting into the Champions League, which is the key thing for all the money. So I just think he's not gonna go. So, you know, we can all sit here and moan about what we're watching because we're right to, because it's not great. But he's not going, not unless it takes a turn for the way. And like, he might go in the summer or something like that.
Yeah.
But it would have to be, there's a plan. I don't think they want to do a Man United where they just pull the plug and then go, actually, don't know who we've got. Like, what are you going to do now? Don't know.
Yeah.
What's Darren Fletcher doing?
But this is the thing, because like you mentioned Man United, I would add Chelsea to that as well, because obviously Maresca has gone in recent weeks, and they got.
Fuck off, Steven Gerrard. I'm not being funny, mate. Someone's put that in the comments, and it's like, look, I absolutely love Steven Gerrard. I adore the fella. He was fucking brilliant for Liverpool. But no, mate. Just no, mate. I'm sorry, but nah. Not having that.
That noise is Liverpool. If Steven Gerrard comes in, we're going to be on the
No
line.
offence to the fella, but I mean, like, I'm sure, you know, and I know he's come out and sort of said that I'm there for Liverpool whenever they need me, and I love him for saying that, but nah, I just don't see it.
I think if that was going to happen, there'd have been more serious word around it by now. I just think if you look at his managerial career to this date, I don't think he's the kind of person
he's even said himself. Like, you know, if you listen to the thing he did with Rio Ferdinand, he says in that podcast, like, I know what I can and can't do, and I know the people I need to have around me to be successful. So that's fair enough. So what's he doing then? He's just coming in and, like, because he'll speak well, you know, that's good. And
I think it's change for change's sake, isn't it? Like, the other thing about what you mentioned about why he's not going and why Chelsea and Man United changed their manager, listen to what the managers were saying publicly. The managers started kind of
beef.
Yeah, started kind of trying to distance themselves from some of the decisions made by the people above them to try to kind of get some of the heat off themselves. Now, with Maresca's case, it sounded like that was probably justified because some of the mad shit that the Chelsea owners were doing, allegedly getting involved with team selection, which is just a big no-no, if you ask me. You understand it, but that's not something that Arne Slot... I'd be amazed if Arne Slot went down that road. And for that reason, I don't see a change happening. I think the thing you've got to remember, as much as you can make guarantees in football, and you can't make guarantees in football, if Liverpool are going to change... they have to be sure the highest percentage possible that what comes next is better than what happens now.
And is worth the money of A, paying off Slot and his team, and B, bringing in a new fella. And also, I think they will have just accepted, whether we like it or not, they've got a long-term plan. And we look at it short term. Yes. We look at it like, you know, we've got to go to the next game and endure something like that again, is how we tend to look at it as fans. We've got to sit in the cold or stand in the cold and watch something like we've been watching the last few games. Whereas they're looking at it and saying, well, that fella's on a 5-year contract, 6-year contract. We're building. These are our targets maybe, you know, in the summer, because apparently we're already ruling ourselves out of January transfer business. Cheers the boys. You know, and like there are other mitigating factors, I'm sure, when they're sitting there in front of a whiteboard in their office, they'll say, well, we thought we were going to get Gay and then we didn't last minute. We got Leone and he looked great in that one game he played and the highlights reel that we had, but then he's out for the season. Can't really factor for that. Blah, 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 blah. So I think whether we as fans like it or not, it's just not going anytime soon. So, you know, like, you can all whinge and moan and somehow blame me or Mo for this, which is a bit weird.
I wish I had any influence whatsoever in these kind of things.
Honestly, I could come on here and absolutely rip into him, call him all kinds and call him everything under the sun, like some people seem to be getting sport out of doing, but there would be absolutely no point. It would change nothing. And so I'm sort of like, well, I support Liverpool. I always have done and always will do. And so we'll crack on and we'll see what happens. And you know, it's not really a thing where you're going to start protesting. It's not a thing where you're going to start writing letters to the club. So, I don't know what I should really say about that, but I've half told the story. Someone was suggesting someone should, which I find mad, because it's almost like, you know, this isn't right and this isn't, you know, I mean, we've seen all this before. Like, I remember similar stuff around Rafa, and it's just like, the fan base is so big and so diverse, and you know, you've got the people who go and the people who don't go, and the people from Liverpool and the people who aren't from Liverpool, all of these different subsets of people. And so the opinions are always going to be wide ranging. I'm mad. You know, from whatever camp you're is, there will be a complete opposite camp as well.
Absolutely.
So, you know, it is what it is, and we've just got to, you know, fight our way through it and keep going. I mean, I'm going to Arsenal.
Well, this is it. Like, we're going to still keep going.
Yeah.
And however you feel
Thursday trip to fucking London and back to probably watch us get tonked. But, you know, up the heads,
however you feel
Imagine
about...
we won.
But that's why you're going.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I mean. That's why you're going. Because imagine if we won. Imagine the feeling of coming out of nowhere into this amazing utopia. Like, Do you remember? I mean, I know you remember Liverpool beating Man United 7-0.
Of course I do.
Do you remember how bad we were?
Of it on my wall.
Do you remember how bad we were in that season?
Yeah.
And how much that season was like this one is an absolute slog, and you're going into games thinking, oh God, I can't wait to see what happens this time because it's going to be even worse than last time. And then suddenly you beat Manchester United 7-0, and it's one of the greatest days most of us can remember for quite some time. That's the beauty of football. That's why you don't give up supporting the team. However, that does not mean that there aren't times when you feel the need to vent to frustration on what you're seeing, to question this person, that person, every single part of the machine. That's what being a football fan or an analyst is all about. That is the job that we do. That is the life that we chose. And I will continue to do that, and so will you. So, we've done the manager. Let's look at the players from their perspective now. So I mentioned it before. If you look at last season, all of the biggest risk takers on the ball seem to be gone. Trent, Diaz, even Darwin. I mean, he took risks. Sometimes you probably shouldn't have, but you back him. If you're in a low block and you need someone to do something special out of nowhere, he had that in his locker. Salah last season was producing output, goals, assists, winning awards, all that kind of stuff. But he massively relied on those three in particular, and he said so himself. So if you look at the players who've come in, you think, well, how many of them have got a little bit of devil, a little bit of magic in them? So I think Hugo's got that, for sure. I think Florian Wirtz has got that. I'd say Frimpong's probably got a bit in his locker. Kirkes, well, we know he's nuts. He's the new Darwin, all hands up, really, isn't he? Now, I know what Carroll said. He was Darwin Núñez, a left back. He kind of meant it as a bit of a piss take, but I mean in spirit, in attitude, I think he can be that guy, and I don't necessarily mean it as a bad thing.
I think he's going to win a tackle with his forehead this season,
and I'm going to be there cheering for it. But you can see them all doing something magical and unexpected. But they're not there yet. They're not as settled in this time with their teammates as those other three players were. So we're getting there, but we're not there yet. The other thing I think we need to consider is the fact that last season, the two biggest goal scorers, Salah and Gakpo, out wide. Even Luis Diaz, he played through the middle, but most of his goals came when he was out wide. Liverpool had a system that was set up so the guys out here were the ones getting the goals. Now, you look at the summer transfer window. We're bringing Florian Wirtz, we're bringing Ekitike, we're bringing Isak. They all want to go in the middle. They are all players who play at their best in the centre. So now, we're having to change the situation, so we're trying to funnel all of the goal-scoring output into the centre. That's a hard thing to do. And so you sometimes get in a situation where players are a little bit caught between two stools. They know what has always worked for them, but then they also know what they've been told to do now. And you almost get into a situation where you think, well, maybe they're changing too much too soon in terms of personnel, but also in terms of strategy.
Yeah. And also, how tied up is it all? Do you know what I mean? Like, so when we say we should be pointing fingers a little bit towards the people who signed the players, well, did they have a big sit down and say, this is how we win matches, this is what it looks like? Because, Carragher and others criticised the fact that we got Ekitike and Isak. And you can understand why, because it's a huge chunk of change. And I'm sure eventually it'll pay off, because I think, he's obviously a broken leg at the minute, and so, can't do a thing. But I think when he is fit, when he is available, he's too good to not score goals.
We'll get there.
But then you're still going to have the problem of how does that work with Ekitike? Can you keep dovetailing between the two, or chopping and changing between the two, because of the number of games, which is being a lot of people's theory, or can Ekitike go out to that? You know what I mean? There's so many questions still about everything, isn't there? I think everyone's doing that thing, me included, where you're looking at it and like, I'm not watching a pattern of play where I'm like, it's not like when we had the front three, where you were like, I've seen this film before, and this film ends with Liverpool scoring a goal and winning the game. Right now, it's sort of like, we're sort of knocking on the door, kind of, but quite gently in a very polite way. We're not kicking it down, we're not shouldering it through, we're not saying we're here and we're going to stamp our authority. We're sort of saying, we're here and we're just going to knock around and that and see what happens. Do you know what I mean?
It's like they're at a party, but they're in the kitchen.
But it's like, I was thinking this morning as well about sort of like, your highlights of the season, if you like, what's actually been good, because I knew people would say, can you give us something positive? And I was thinking, fucking hell, it's a big ask. But, Real Madrid's got to be one, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And what did we have about us that day? A bit of aggression,
urgency,
fight,
intensity,
tempo.
Yeah.
And it's like, where's that gone? Because regardless of injuries or people playing out of position or whatever, you can have that.
Yeah.
You can have that. And, you'd even had Curtis doing an interview for NBC or whatever it was, where he that's what he was saying as well. We can dog it, we can fight. Yeah. And it's like, I sort of don't see that stuff. So you know what I mean? Like, we're doing, we're all right in patches of games, but there's not like a real intensity. Even like, I'm sort of loath to do the body language thing because of how often that's used in a weird way to create shit stories. But even the body language, though, isn't great, is it? Do you know what I mean? When you're just looking at them on the pitch, around the pitch, all the rest of it. And, like Gakpo ripping his shirt off, it's like there's all this frustration boiling under, isn't it? And then he rips that off, and it's like, and then you see him after, and it's just like the straw. I mean, that dressing room afterwards must have been a grim place to be. Like,
there've been late equalisers that they've conceded this season before, and I remember, as I say, I spoke to Virgil after the Leeds game at Allen Road, and he was not
Palace.
Generally, like really sad rather than just angry. And you got that impression again that this was another big knock that it was going to take for them to kind of get over. But like you mentioned Curtis, he said at half time, he said after the game that at half time they were saying that they needed to show a bit more heart, a bit more fight. And I guess if you do look at the first half to second half.
On Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was better.
Yeah, it was better.
Yeah.
It was almost like they were like, come on, we can't really go out like this. And again,
we didn't have a shot first half, did we?
No. It was and you look at
proper Sunday afternoon gear, that one.
And you look at the indecision and like, it's weird because there are some times when you look at something and it can be working and it'd be great and you think it's great and then it's not working and you think it's terrible, but it's the same thing. And I think that, so Virgil is one of those people who I think he's always been a bit like that on the ball. He's always been a bit cool, a bit casual, kind of knocking it around, trying to see what's in front of him, trying to size up the opponents. And when Liverpool are great, and when he can then ping a 70-yard ball out to Salah, and Salah skins someone and has someone overlapping him, and it turns into a goal, you're like, wow, fantastic. But when you need a bit more, and he's still doing the same thing, it's like...
I mean, I just end up pining for people who aren't here, like, but I mean, if you think about, I mean, he was unbelievable, so this is probably a really bad example, but like when we had Suarez, you know what I mean, or Diaz as a more recent example, like someone who would just go, fuck this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Give me the ball, I'll do something.
And at the moment, aside from Ekatike, there's not too much of that, is there? Do you know what I mean? And again, is it that sort of that safe approach all the time over a little bit of risk taking? Is that coming from the coach
and
or the players?
And do the players buy into it? Because I mentioned the changes. There's been some comments recently from Alexis McAllister to Sky Sports that have caused a little bit of a ripple. I'll read out the main quote that he said. Many things have changed, as I said. New players came in to replace those who left. We changed too many things, but I prefer to keep it to myself. First thing about that.
You didn't keep it to yourself. Okay, not bad.
That is factually incorrect, Alex says.
If you're going to keep it to yourself, you don't say anything. That's how it works, mate.
But, I mean, it seems to suggest that the players think that too much has changed. And you can look at it and think, well, obviously there was such a tight-knit group. They won the league together. Who
do you reckon they wanted to stay? Because I thought about this, and obviously Salah, did that tweet, didn't he? Where he was like, let's see, like, they've got to prove themselves. Along those lines. I can't remember the actual words, but you know what I mean. And I was thinking, well, who was it that went that they didn't want to go? Do you think? Because I mean, the obvious one's Diaz.
Yeah,
but. And I still see that every day, almost every time I log onto social media, this thing about we definitely should have kept him, we should have paid him the money he wanted and all this. And I was thinking, well, again, that feels a little bit like this. Like, who knows Has someone written an article that I've missed where it said if we'd have paid him more money, he was definitely staying? Because what I remember is our fella, fanning his ass at Barca and stuff like that. It seemed to be like there was a slow goodbye of he wanted to go somewhere else.
And we'd heard
and
reports.
Was it solely down to money? I don't know. I'm genuinely asking the question because I haven't seen where it. People keep putting it in terms that I haven't seen it in.
We'd heard reports that he'd wanted to go.
Would have stayed.
He'd wanted to go the season before, and so you look at it and you say, could you keep an unhappy player? Would paying him that extra money have guaranteed that he would continue to play? I mean, look, number one, there was a fella who plays very well last season who we decided to pay a lot of money, and guess what? He's not playing well this season. And you look at Luis Diaz at Bayern Munich and say, wow, he's in great form. We could do with that now.
In Germany.
Would he be doing that here in the Premier League? And look, I watch a lot of Bundesliga, and I know that it's a better league than a lot of people give it credit for. But I still think it's harder to do what he's doing in the Premier League for Liverpool than it is in the Bundesliga for by far the best team in the league, as they are over there.
I meant to just give a couple of other people a shout that I've thrown in here in the super chats because we always do because it's nice and thank you. So Jai, loads of numbers beginning with 3. He's thrown a 5 in.
Is it pie?
You know what it is? I got new glasses the other day and I haven't picked them up yet, and this is the worst it's ever been for me to try and read these comments because I said to the opposition they've deteriorated a bit lately, and she went he's doing the things and all the drop and then she's like, can you read that? And I was like, yeah, and I was thinking, that's not that bad, and she went, now we'll take this away, and I was thinking, I thought that was my eyesight, could see fuck all in one of my eyes, so anyway, that's the excuse.
Is it time to increase the font, Grandad?
it could be. I've got varifocals as well, so that's going to be fun. Anyway, he said, think Slot will stay unless there's an apocalyptic run of losses. He'll probably get his 4th. Only option is to support the lads. Let's not become Man United re-managers. There's something in that, I would say, because, they've had plenty of them and they all don't work. Brace DeVille is throwing in $10 and says, I can take an off-season, but my worry is that we're losing appeal to potential incomings who are seeing the state of things, i.e. Gay and Semenyo.
Well, we're going to talk about transfer. In fact, looking at the time, we should probably crack on to that now. I'm not so sure that Liverpool will lose appeal in general because I look at Manchester United and the way that they were still able to attract players even when they were worse than Liverpool are now. I think the problem is that, as you've seen with recent reports for both those players, if a team who is probably better equipped right now, i.e. a Manchester City, come in, then if it's a choice between Liverpool and Manchester City, as we sit here right now, then yes, they probably are going to choose Manchester City. But you mentioned both those players, and you mentioned earlier on about the fact that Liverpool probably aren't going to go too heavy in the January transfer window. That's the reports that we are hearing, the noises that we are hearing from trusted sources. I can't say I'm that surprised, really. I did think when we got to the 2nd of September, even having missed out on signing Mark Gahey, I did think the Liverpool that we have known under FSG, everything tells me that after spending that much money in one window, they're not going to then go and spend loads of money in the next one. No, they are doing a plan. They're trying to buy a lot of players in one go and then say, this is going to be our team for the next 2, 3, 4.
I would like to know what the plan is because they obviously did want Gay and it was going to be 35 million and he had his video ready to go and all that kind of stuff. And now it seems like every club in the world can want him and not us anymore.
And the price is going to go up.
Yeah, well, I just heard that on the radio before. So City are apparently in for him now, of course.
Yeah.
The cheating 115 charge bastards.
Well, I mean, in fairness to City, they did have 2 centre-halves get injured yesterday.
Yeah.
And one of them, Guardiola, looks like, I'm not a doctor, but
it
looked bad.
And yeah, apparently Palace have sort of put it out there as well that he'll now cost more.
Of course.
Because why not?
Because that's how business works.
Yeah. And so allegedly everyone's having a mooch now, and so it's far from being so that we can lean on that, as that's definitely going to happen. So what's plan B then? And you know, we seem to be linked again with, like, you know, young kids and stuff like that, and it's like, that's great, but right now a first team squad, a first team player, you know, that the manager can actually use and rely on and stuff like that, you know, that kind of be great. I mean, another question just on the Diaz thing, I don't know if you'd put it in your agenda, but it's just something that I keep seeing and is in my mind a little bit, is with the Diaz thing, when he left and everyone went, well, what about him? Because he's gone and he hasn't been replaced and there's no one sort of like him. And it was like the line that was sort of peddled everywhere was, well, they don't want to block the way for Inga Bauer. It's not playing him.
Not playing him. I think that was another one of those situations where maybe one person had one idea and another person had another idea. Now, something that I'm cooking up as an article for this Anfield is something around squad size, squad depth. Something that Neil Atkinson mentioned in his post-match, which I'm sure most of you have seen or heard about by now. I'm kind of doing a little bit of a deeper dive into that and what it means when you say you want to only have a smaller squad. But that idea of blocking the pathway, that only happens if the player that you're buying can A, only play in that same position, and B, is a younger player who's going to be at that position for quite some time. If you're buying an established, maybe 27, 28-year-old player, like, for example, Antoine Semenyo, who's 26, I believe, who can play on both sides, I don't think you can say that he would stop Rio and Gamora's development, because there are plenty of times where the two of them can play in the same side. But the point is that Rio and Gamora's development is relying on, you know, giving him the right minutes at the right time. There is a separate question here, by the way, which is, how much does Slot trust young players? Yeah. We've seen him talk positively about loads of them. We have seen him play very few of them.
You know, I mean, we're obviously going to moan because it's not ideal.
Strap yourself in, everyone.
So, but why was there two fucking keepers on the bench? I never understand that. Like, where's that lad we bought from Salford or whatever? I don't know.
Well, right.
I don't know how good he is or anything else. Like, but you know, where's someone like that? Where's Dan? I don't know. Where's anyone? He was an outfield player that you could actually use instead of just sticking two keepers there.
So
does it make sense?
Those two in particular, I think. Well, Dan's is still injured. I think Will Wright is just coming back from injury, but I'd like to think that maybe he's going to be in contention. I don't know. Maybe we'll see him for Barnsley. But my point of it is really, what's the point of players being on the bench if you don't want to pick them? If you're not going to pick them, and he's spoken about the squad size and how it's like, well, we've got 4 or 5 players who've not played 10 minutes in the Premier League. Well, guess what? Guess what they're not going to do? They're not going to play any more Premier League minutes if you don't pick them in Premier League games. So I think with Rio and Gamora, I've been an advocate more than most people of he has to have the right time. You've got to give him the right minutes in the right situations. Honestly, I think second half against Leeds, second half against Fulham were probably situations I'd like to see him. I'd like to see them give more minutes in that game against Leeds, where it's clear that we needed a bit of shaking up. And
he's had less minutes than Endo this season.
And Endo's been injured for how long? So we're talking transfer window, and the other player that we need to mention is Harvey Elliott, because he's strongly tipped to return because Villa basically are being tight-fisted and don't want to pay the money that's going to cost to bring him in. So they're just not going to play him. He's going to sit and rot on their bench. And because he played, or he was, I think he did play against Newcastle a few minutes for Liverpool before he went there. That means that the only clubs he can play for this season are Liverpool or Aston Villa. Yeah. So that means that there's a choice for Liverpool to bring him back. I don't believe it was something that was put into the original deal, because I don't think they thought it was going to happen. But it would be something whereby I believe there would be some kind of financial penalty paid from one to another in order to bring him back. Now, again, in light of what we just said about these players on the bench who aren't going to play, it feels like a no-brainer to bring Harvey Elliott back. Again, a player who can produce something out of nothing, a little bit of an attacking daredevil, someone who you can see if you're in a tight game and you're struggling to score, bring him on and he'll be able to do that. Now, he wasn't really happy with that situation last season, although I dare say, having spent the first 6 months of Villa not even getting that, he might be a little bit more amenable to it this time. But my question is, part of the reason why he wasn't playing so much last season is because we had Dom Szoboszlai playing in the position he wanted to play, number 10. We have since added Florian Wirtz. So, is he actually going to play more minutes? Is it genuinely going to be a situation where we bring Harvey Elliott back and then he just ends up sitting there kicking his heels here like he would be in Villa, just in a different colour shirt?
Is he just, one of the things with Slot, I think, and it's my opinion, is that he has players where he just like, I don't fancy them, and then that's it. And it's a bit like with Klopp, it felt like, whether that was the case or not, he would use players at times. It felt from the outside looking in, I can't know, I'm not there, I'm not at training, I don't know. But from the outside looking in, my opinion is it felt like everyone, felt like they had a chance.
They could change his mind if need be.
Yeah, and obviously, there were times where the injuries were that bad or that people were that knackered that he was leaning on loads of them, and we had some mad moments because of that in the League Cup and stuff like that, but good moments, you know what I mean? And, we've got this Barnes, the FA Cup tie coming up. And it'd be interesting to see what he does there. And we said last week, didn't we? It feels like one you can't just be going, I'm not arsed. No. Like the season we're having, you can't go out to fucking Barnes there at Anfield. You just can't. And so he needs to strike the balance of giving some of these lads a go, but also winning the game. So it'll be interesting to see what he does there. Another thing in the window as well is that there seems to be lots of Italian clubs who are interested in Chiesa. Now, I sort of get it because despite this sort of cult hero thing, for me, he still isn't ripping up any trees.
No.
Even when he's got to start. Someone got really annoyed with me for saying that I didn't think that last week. I don't know what they've seen. What's he done that's been brilliant or something? I'm still waiting.
I think a lot of people see him as being not the others who aren't doing it. So he's an option. Why isn't he? Don't keep going with the players who aren't working. Let's try something else. And so when the team
just
is playing
for the sake of, but then when he's in the team and doesn't do anything, well, when he gets in the team, that's why he's got to take the opportunity. And then, I like, he's better than he was, if you ask me, and a bit of spirit about him and all that kind of stuff. Great, but enough.
All of the performances, for me personally, all the performances when you look at it and think he's had a positive impact have been when he's been told to go on and just make something happen. It's not when he's gone on within the supposed structure of the game. So at a time when Liverpool need a goal, and like I said before, and they're throwing attackers on, and he goes on and he does something. The times when he's been from the start part of the initial game plan of the whatever it was to beat that opponent, he's not been as good. I think the one exception I was to put to that is I thought he was good in the League Cup against Southampton. I thought that was probably his best game. But again, talking about Italian teams, I think he still believes that he can get into the World Cup squad. I think the Italian teams might be able to say, well, this is a opportune moment to try and get a good deal out of Liverpool and the player might finally be willing to come over for that reason. But it sounds like Liverpool are going to say, yeah, if you want to buy him on a permanent deal, show us some money and maybe we'll talk. On the loan, no chance.
Do you know, I'm sure you've seen, but you'll understand why I've got this stupid grin on my face in a minute. Do you know have you seen who's a free agent?
No.
Divock Origi. I fucking love Divock. And look, at 30 years old or whatever he is now, maybe not getting a lot out of him or whatever, but do you know what? I just love to sing that song one more time.
You know what? It's strange because I think if Liverpool genuinely said we're going to bring Origi back, you would see as many people happy and ecstatic as people melting down.
Oh no, there used to be a fella in front of me. I don't think he's coming anymore now, but it became like an in-joke between me and like a lad to one side of me on the cop that we got onto that. he didn't like. Basically, so we just used to sing Divock Origi at random points in game. He'd always turn round and he'd be like, "Don't like him, do you?
What's wrong with you?"
He's boss.
Yeah, but I mean, look, he was the kind of guy who you look back on now and think about all the wonderful, amazing moments he had in a Liverpool shirt. It's amazing how many of the frustrating moments you forget about.
I know, yeah, I know.
And I think...
Just the wild little cameos, though, and I'm trying to get your head around that way his head worked was fun, though, wasn't it?
Like, you know what I would love?
Football without Origi is nothing.
I would love to have a sit-down interview with Divock. That's what I would love to do. I'd love to talk to him about his time in Liverpool.
I know. I tried to track him down at one point, didn't get anywhere, but... I love that story that came out about him at one point where it was like he got really into psychology and then they basically had to have a word with him and say you are playing for Liverpool as a professional footballer, and it's just like, oh, are you?
Yeah, it's not a side project. No, he's going, I'm going to go off to a university and do a master's. Like,
it's not gonna happen, is it? But it's fun to talk about, and it put a little smile on my face for a moment anyway.
So, okay, we've said that we don't believe the Liverpool going to go big in the transfer market. Do you think they're going to do anything? And if they don't, how concerned would you be?
If they don't? Well, I think I'm already sort of pretty much resigned to the fact that they're not. Because it seems to me every time they say they're not, they stick to that. We don't suddenly get some rabbit pulled out the hat. And, be linked, as I say, we've been linked to a couple of young lads, haven't we? Which, meh. Like I'm sure they're great and all the rest of it, but they're going to have zero impact on the first team in the immediacy that I can see. I'm just a little bit worried, I think, in what it says about us right now, because we've gone from being a team that won the league, a team that was champions. We all spoke about sort of, improving from a position of strength and all that kind of stuff, and then loads of stuff's gone wrong. It's not where we want it to be, and it doesn't kind of feel like we're trying to put it right in the immediacy. It's more like, yeah, okay, we're going to stick to this long-term plan. But how does that long-term plan look if you don't get it top four? How does the long-term plan look if you keep losing, etc. and so on? So there's a little bit of a worry there. And I think that, the manager, again, I just don't think he says the right things sometimes. He's maybe too honest sometimes, and other times he says things where you're like, I don't believe that. I don't know. I'm just not overly enamored with a lot of stuff he says in public, and just sort of like, I don't think we're going to win the league, obviously.
No.
Neither do you, and neither do most Reds I speak to, although I do know one who put a bet on the other week, which is very optimistic.
Oh, well, that reminds me. Happy birthday to Rob Gutman's brother.
actually, wasn't it? But it was like, to hear him sort of just like, we're way off and all that. I don't know. I would prefer him to use different words, just because, you're supposed to be this statesman-like inspiring figure. So be one.
I
and
agree.
just sort of, just saying we're throwing the season away a little bit doesn't sound great for me.
So I agree with you on that. The one caveat I will put in is I think it shows the difference between when he does a pre-match press conference on a standalone day and then a pre-match press conference straight after a post-match conference. Because we've talked about how when a manager's just had a result, the emotion of that result normally clouds and colours a lot of what they say. Like, when you think about all the crazy quotes we've heard from managers down the times, including Amorim, including Maresca, including Pep Guardiola at times, the majority of them come in post-match press conferences after a game. I think once you've had time to kind of digest what's happened in the game, maybe watch it back, maybe chat with your coaches, all those kind of things, let the dust settle, come in a little bit more centered, that's when you're more likely to see a little bit more robust, a little bit more defiance. I think when you're in it, particularly as we just said about how heartbreaking that last result would have been, and you could almost say how depressing the Leeds game was, then I can understand there being a little bit more downbeat about it. But you're right. I mean, so the next press conference is Wednesday ahead of the game against Arsenal. Dear God. I'd expect him to be a little bit more upbeat for that one.
Wonder why there was a spare going for Gareth for that. But I'll take it. Fuck it. It's going to watch the Reds, innit?
Yeah,
And you never
absolutely. No, you're right. You never know.
Yeah.
But so let's round off this show with the it could be worse section by talking about our good friends in Manchester who have got rid of another manager, a guy who only finished 15th.
Dave Wilson's desperate for us to start the subscriber show to get rid of some of the bells in the comments.
Well, I mean, I'm going to need to take a mid-show piss as well. But we'll be talking about more fun things.
TMI.
Not really. More fun things in the Patreon subscriber show.
Flying over an hour here, lad, by the way. 110.
Is it?
Yeah.
You should have told me that at like 58 rather than...
I thought you'd have an eye on it. Do you know
Well,
what I mean?
I thought I did. I thought I was... Anyway, I got distracted. But anyway, the Patreon show, we're going to be talking about much more fun stuff. We're going to be talking about our favourite days. We're going to be talking about music. We're going to be talking about film. We're going to talk about beating the cold, which is probably quite handy for all of us out now. And what we're not going to be talking about is Liverpool being bad at football. So we've got that out of the way. Hopefully, by the next time we get to do this, we won't have to go so deep into all of this. Thank you for coming along with us on this apparently epic marathon journey. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.